were kind of mulling about returning to the office, and it made me think about some good experiences that I've had, but I've also had experiences where I got walked on and walked all over, and I really need to think about how I change my relationship with my clients to avoid some of these problems. I do private tutoring, and I have some students who are just entitled or unobservant or sloppy or any combinations of that, and it just sends the entire tutoring relationship into chaos. And I thought I mentioned some of them in this video. Hopefully none of you guys have run into this. I probably set myself up for some of this due to how I behave at the office. So I had a client who was very unobservant. I work at a tutoring center, and we like to reward the students with points that they could trade for various items, including snack items, at the tutoring center. But I have to be careful around people who are eating things like that because I have severe skin allergies. I could break out in eczema if I'm not careful about that. And usually I'll tell my students to please be careful. I never tell them to not eat whatever it is there because it's not really my center. I really don't really have the authority to do that. But I'll tell them to be careful. And if it's an older student, I'll mention I have health problems. If it's a younger student, it's a little trickier. But I think by the time kids are in their early teens, I think they should have a good understanding that one person's food is another person's poison. So that's a little easier. If it's a younger kid, usually I'll talk to the parents if that's possible. Okay, so I had an AP chemistry student who's he's about 15, 16 years old, and I felt he should understand. Now, usually when I tell the students to be careful, a lot of students will realize that they should probably take their snack foods with them, and eat it on the way home or at home. But this one student just doesn't seem to have a care in the world, to the point that oftentimes, every so often, I have to remind him again to please be careful. And what's really annoying about him is that, I hate to use the word annoying because this is a good habit, but it doesn't work for me. He eats really slowly, to the point where a bag of chips that should have lasted 5 to 10 minutes, he stretches it out to 45 minutes. And long story short, I kind of invented social distancing with him months before we had to do it. It really put a big distraction to the lesson. And he doesn't seem to get it. I mean, most students, when they realize that their lesson that they're paying good money for is being distracted by the fact that I have to social distance from them, they'll get the message that they should maybe take the chips home. Most students will. But I worked with him for months. I mean, I still work with him online, so I got to be careful how I handle it when I get back to the office with him. But now that I've built a good rapport, and he sees that I hit the tutoring job out of the park, I think I feel better about saying something now. But he doesn't seem to get the message that the tutoring that they're paying good money for is being distracted by a 50-cent bag of chips. It just drives me nuts how he doesn't he feels so unobservant about things. Anyways, okay. My second gripe is with people who have just a lot of last-minute changes for whatever reason, right? So, for example, I had we have a last-minute cancellation policy, right? But a lot of times, the students and or their family will come up with ways to get around the cancellation. See, if they tell me they cancel and they use the word canceling, they realize they have to pay a cancellation fee, right, or pay for the lesson, whatever the case is. So they'll do something to make it unattractive for me to have the lesson at the last minute. They'll change the location, something will happen, maybe. So I had a client. I was going to their home. They were what was the situation here? They were coming to the Redmond area. I was living in Redmond, Washington at the time. They're in Sammamish, about 8 or 9 miles away. And so on the day of the tutoring, his mom had emailed me saying that their car had broken down and asked if I could go to their home in Sammamish. Now I could handle that maybe, and I'm like, all right. I should have said that it would be some amount extra for the drive, but I didn't want to lose that session. Because once people say they're going to change the location, they feel entitled to that. If you can't do it, that's on you, right? I should have stood up for myself. That's one lesson that I learned. Now the problem is, I agreed to that, and now his mom is saying that, well, actually, can you also pick up my son? I also don't have a right to pick up my son and take him to the library or take him somewhere. I can't remember where this was. And I'm thinking to myself, not only is that an extra however many minutes to commit to that event, but my car's not really in a good situation to be taking a ride to give a ride to somebody. I mean, I was living in the car at the time. I didn't want my clients to know I'm living in my car, obviously, and so I had to frantically dump everything out of my car into a place behind the bushes. This was a time when the weather was very nice. And pick up the kid, take him to the library, and pray that my stuff is still there. I mean, I did nothing really important, but it would still be a loss if the stuff wasn't there when I came back. Fortunately, it was. But that's how much I allow myself to get walked on. So the student doesn't know, his family doesn't know I live in the car. I still made it. I didn't get canceled on. In retrospect, I should have just said our agreement was to meet in Redmond, and if you can't do it, I'm going to have to charge you a cancellation fee. Or, if you insist on meeting at your home, it's this much extra, right? See, I need to be a little bit more specific about my cancellation policy. I got to find out the right way to do this without... Some of these families who are seeking my tutoring, they have a lot of options. So you can't really throw a 30-page contract at them. Yeah, they're not going to sit down and read 30 pages. So I gotta think about how to be specific without driving my clients away. Okay, my funniest story is I had a client who was just incredibly sloppy. And the sloppiness was really all he needed to work on. To give you an idea, he's studying AP chemistry. And we were working on chapter, I think one of the earlier chapters, on balancing chemical equations. And I give him a famous equation to balance, and this one was the nitrogen dioxide dissolving in water to give nitric acid and nitrogen monoxide. And I asked him to balance that chemical equation. And he comes, this was at the end of the lesson when I said, take this home and work on it. And he comes back and he gives me his answer, and I look at the coefficients. I've seen that equation so many times that I know it by heart, and the coefficients are completely wrong. But I look at his work, and I don't see any mistakes in his work. And what's going on here? And he got me the problem down wrong. And he's done stuff like that many times, that I realize that's something he needs to work on. And what was really funny is that, okay, so not long after that, we locked down and I had to tutor him over Zoom. And he would be really sloppy. He would log into Zoom and he would misspell his name, or something on the Zoom setting would be off. He would accidentally show up like half naked because his Zoom turned on unexpectedly. Or a multitude of problems like that. Sloppiness is what I want to get at. And I would tell him that, I like how you can go through the entire problem without making a mistake. But yet, I noticed every time you sign into Zoom that your name is spelled in a funny way, or that there's stuff in the Zoom meeting that really shouldn't be there. Is there a reason for so little attention to the details? I love how you can go through a problem and know all the concepts, but oftentimes there's so many details. Is there a reason for that? And he said, "Oh, I'm just in such a rush to get back to you that I don't really give a crap to logging into Zoom." And I said, "Please do." Because it's not even just about logging into Zoom anymore. It's about how you let these little details drag your score down from what should be an A down to a D. And what was really funny was on the nitric acid problem, the way he wrote down the problem, it actually seemed okay. I mean, so the formula for nitric acid is HNO3, but in the rush to write it down, he wrote NH3, which is ammonia, which is a legitimate chemical, and the rest of the stuff, I'm guessing that autocorrect probably did that for him. He probably typed something incredibly incorrect, and autocorrect figured out that NH3 makes the most sense. Whatever the case is, the Zoom really gave me a window into his thinking process, because he probably relaxed everything down quite a bit. But what was really funny was that as soon as I coached him into correcting his sloppiness, he seemed to do a whole lot better. And I actually lost him as a student because of how well he did. And that's that. Anyways, I'm going to have to see a lot more of that when we go back to the classroom. And hopefully I won't let myself get walked on so much.